Hey Rock Buds, it's Rock Papa. Hope you guys are doing fantastic today. Today we're going to talk about the Eastern Foreland Basin and the Acadian Orogeny, the Acadian mountain building event. We'll look at the different phases of the Acadian Orogeny in the eastern United States and talk about the sediments they produced that became our present day rocks. So hope this video is useful to you, and if so, please subscribe. And once again, thank you so much to you wonderful subscribers. I do appreciate you so much. So without further ado, here we go. Eastern Foreland Basin, Acadian Orogeny. As you guys know, there were three major orogenies or mountain building events that affected the eastern United States. The first one was the Acadian Orogeny with its several tectophases, and we did a video on that already. The next one was the Acadian Orogeny with a whole bunch of tectophases that we'll be talking about today, and the third one was the last one was the Alleghenian Orogeny, and these three orogenies resulted in the assembly of the supercontinent Pangaea. And all three of these orogenies contributed sediments to the Eastern Foreland Basin. Alleghenian sediments on top of Acadian sediments, and Acadian sediments on top of Taconian sediments. Hey Rock Buds, all of these orogenies were the result of subduction, and as we know, subduction creates and enlarges continents. How about rifting? Rifting creates and enlarges oceans. Hey Rock Buds, the Acadian Orogeny was different from the other orogenies, and this is how. First of all, it was a microcontinent, much larger than the volcanic island chain of the Taconian. And secondly, it originally crashed in at the northern Appalachians. It offloaded a bunch of sediments in the Catskill Delta, and then it began to move southwest, creating, as it moved along, about 6 of the tectophases that begin with the black shale and limestone and go up through the clean white sandstone phase. It finally ran out of sediments and came to rest at Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, and is now called the Carolina Superterrane. Hey Rock Buds, even though there were about 6 of these black shale up to white sandstone tectophases involved in the Acadian, only 2 of these tectophases were major ones, and those are the ones we're going to look at. So let's have a look at them. The first and biggest of these tectophases is called the Catskill tectophase, and it created the massive Catskill Delta that was deposited on top of the much smaller Queenston Delta of Taconian. The next major tectophase is called the Neo-Acadian tectophase, and as the Acadian microcontinent slid southwest, it created several depositional basins in sequence, which included the Pocono Foreland Basin or Delta and the Borden Foreland Basin or Delta, both of which received sediments from the eroding Acadian mountains. Hi guys, so let's look at some of the rock layers produced by these 2 major Acadian tectophases. In this funky table of the Catskill Delta sediments, LS means limestone, SH means shell, and SS means sandstone. And showing the Onondaga limestone, Marcellus black shell being deposited first, and the Catskill Hampshire sandstones being deposited last. This is by no means a perfect rendition of what happened, but it serves to give you the general idea of how we started off with the limestone and black shell and worked our way up through grayish shell into the sandstone that topped off the Catskill Delta tectophase. Here's a lovely stone wall made of Onondaga limestone and some Marcellus black shale. Next, we have some gray shells that show that the Acadian mountains had begun to erode in earnest. Some sandstone of the Four Knobs Formation. Then came the Hampshire Formation with both red and white sandstones. We were still in the hot, dry trade wind belt, and that's why you get these red colored sediments that have been oxidized. And these rocks have basically been rusted red by contact with air. And here's some Catskill white sandstone with dark blobs of mud embedded in it. And here's a colorful graphic depiction of what we've just been talking about to kind of show you how the Catskill Delta stacked up. After the Catskill Delta deposits were laid down, the Acadian microcontinent began to slide southwest, and in the process, it created the second major tectophase of the Acadian orogeny, which is called the Neo-Acadian tectophase. Let's have a look at that. As the Acadian microcontinent slid southwest, when it got to Virginia and West Virginia, it created the Pocono-Granger Delta. Here are some of the deposits associated with the Pocono Delta. Hey rock buds, all these formations are scattered all over the place, so it's pretty hard to gather them up and put them in a logical sequence. So in all these tables where I show the sequence, I may be off plus or minus a little bit, but you get the general idea. Here's some Sunbury black shell. That begins the sequence. Meadville gray shell that followed. Then came the sandstones that followed. This is the Pocono sandstone. There's some conglomerate there too, and it's a major ridge former. Here's the Mall Chunk Formation that's mostly red shale, siltstones, and sandstones. And here again, the red colors suggest above water weathering in a hot, dry climate. And here's the Pottsville sandstone. The Borden Delta complex was a major part of this Neo-Acadian tectophase, so let's have a look at it. It happened in Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and thereabouts. And it shows how the rapidly eroding Acadian microcontinent had shifted a little further southwest. At the bottom here, you can see the Chattanooga, New Albany, Ohio black shell that started things off in the Borden Delta. The left or southwest side of the Borden Delta was pretty deep water, and it was cold too, so limestone didn't form. Instead, we got the Fort Payne Chert Formation. In some ways, this is similar to the ribbon chert that forms at the base of the continental slope in a deep ocean basin, except that the Borland Basin was not near that deep, so that silicon-rich creatures like diatoms and radiolarians could flourish and produce those interesting and unique structures called bioherms. And this table shows some of those sediments that were laid down sequentially in the Borden Delta of the Neo-Acadian tectophase of the Acadian orogeny. Chattanooga black shale. This picture from the Roadside Geology of Georgia book by Pamela Gore and Bill Witherspoon shows the Chattanooga shell at the bottom, the Maury grayish shell above that, and the Fort Payne Chert Formation on top. New Providence gray shell from another part of the Borden Delta. We're looking at Jabez sandstone, one of the sandstones that topped off the Borden Delta. Hey rock buds, by the time the Acadian microcontinent had slid down to North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, it had no more sediments to give. The Acadian orogeny was coming to a rapid end, and now they call that piece of real estate the Carolina Terrain or the Carolina Super Terrain. In this picture, the Carolina Terrain is shown in green. Hey rock buds, that's it for the Acadian orogeny. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much for hanging in here with me in this kind of complicated story of the tectonic activities of Mother Earth. If this was useful to you, please subscribe. And this is your Rock Papa saying to all my most excellent rock buds, happy rock hunting. Papa out.